Imagine waking up every morning knowing you will never age, never weaken, never die. Sounds like a dream, right? A gift beyond measure? But now, imagine watching everyone you love wither away, seeing civilizations rise and fall like sandcastles before the tide. That's the price of immortality, an unbroken existence in a world that forgets you. This is the story of Elias Mercer, a man who, long ago, sought the ultimate gift, eternal life. And now, centuries later, he's starting to wonder if he made the worst mistake of all. It was the year 1348. The Black Death roamed the streets like a hungry beast, devouring entire families in a matter of days. The air was thick with the stench of decay, the cries of the dying blending with the prayers of the desperate. Corpses lined the alleys, abandoned by those too afraid to give them a proper burial. Fear ruled the hearts of men, and hope was a dwindling flame. But Elias was not like the others. He did not cower in the shadows or plead for divine mercy. He was an alchemist, a man of science and forbidden knowledge, obsessed with conquering death itself. For years he had locked himself away in his dimly lit chamber, surrounded by tomes of ancient wisdom and bubbling flasks of strange concoctions. He had studied the secrets of the philosophers, sought guidance from cryptic texts, and tested countless elixirs on the vermin that infested his home. Most had failed, turning his subjects to dust, driving them into madness or worse. But now he had done it. A single vial, shimmering with a dark green hue, promised everything he had ever desired. It was the culmination of his life's work, a potion that defied nature, a remedy to the greatest of all afflictions. He held it in his trembling hands, staring at the swirling liquid within. There was no doubt in his mind. He drank without hesitation. At first, it was everything he had hoped for. Warmth spread through his veins like liquid fire, igniting every fiber of his being with newfound vitality. He felt stronger, lighter, as if he had been unshackled from the burdens of mortality. His body, once weakened by exhaustion and sleepless nights, now brimmed with energy. No wound lingered, no sickness dared touch him. The plague that ravaged his town, it passed through him like wind through an open door. He walked among the infected, untouched by their suffering. He watched as the disease consumed his neighbors, reducing them to rotting husks, while he remained unscathed. Kings and peasants alike fell before the relentless hand of death, but Elias stood, eternal and unbroken. For a time he reveled in his triumph. He was a god among men, a being beyond the reach of fate. The world crumbled around him, but he endured, untouched by the ravages of time. But immortality is a patient tormentor. Days turned to weeks, weeks to months. The plague had done its work well. His town, once filled with the laughter of children and the chatter of merchants, had become a silent graveyard. He wandered the empty streets, his footsteps echoing against crumbling walls. There were no more voices, no more human touch, only the ghosts of memories whispering in the wind. He left, seeking the company of the living, but no matter where he went, death followed. Kingdoms fell, empires crumbled. He watched lovers age and wither before his eyes, their hands slipping from his grasp as time dragged them into the abyss. Friends became strangers, their faces fading with each passing generation. He buried them all. Centuries passed, and the weight of eternity settled upon him. The thrill of invincibility turned to bitter loneliness. He had defied death, but in doing so, he had also defied life. For what was existence without an end, without meaning? He had sought to conquer death. Instead, he had become its prisoner, and time, no matter how endless, always finds a way to punish those who defy it. The first century was a gift. Elias watched generations pass like pages in a book, each era bringing new wonders to discover. He learned every language, mastered every skill, and walked among both kings and paupers, never belonging to either. The world was vast, and he had all the time in existence to unravel its mysteries. He fell in love, many times. Passion burned bright, but love is not built for eternity. Mortals withered while he remained unchanged, untouched by time's cruel hand. Then came Cecilia. It was the late 1600s when he met her, an artist with ink-stained hands and a laugh that could melt the coldest winter. She painted the world as she saw it, raw, beautiful, fleeting. From the moment she looked at him, eyes filled with unspoken understanding, he knew this love would be different. She sensed there was something unusual about him, but she never questioned. She simply loved him, and he loved her in return. For a time he allowed himself to believe they could have forever. But forever was his curse, not hers. Elias watched helplessly as time stole her away, first in the delicate etching of wrinkles, then in frailty, and finally in death. She held his hand as she faded, whispering that she had no regrets. But he did. He always would. He buried her beneath a willow tree, tracing promises into the bark, vows of a future she would never see. Over time, he learned to stop falling in love, because love for an immortal was just another way to suffer, and he had suffered enough. The Industrial Revolution roared to life, reshaping the world with steam and steel. Then came the World Wars, tearing nations apart with fire and fury. The space age followed, sending mankind beyond the heavens. The world changed at a relentless pace, yet Elias remained the same, a silent observer, a man out of time. He adapted, blending in, keeping to the edges of society where no one would question his ageless face. He reinvented himself 1,000 times, merchant, doctor, scholar, wanderer. Each new identity was a shield against suspicion, a way to move through history unnoticed. But no matter how many names he took, the truth remained. The world moved forward, and he was a relic left behind. He walked beside men who became legends. In a quiet London tavern, he shared whispered ideas with Shakespeare, his words finding their way into immortal verses. He debated philosophy with Nietzsche over bitter coffee, challenging ideas that would shape the modern world. And once, in a candlelit Florentine workshop, he handed Leonardo da Vinci a sketch of something suspiciously resembling an airplane. He existed in the margins of history, influencing without leaving a trace, but every friendship was a fleeting thing, every bond destined to break. He watched them all fade, one by one, their hair silvering, their hands trembling, their eyes dimming with age while his remained unchanged. At first he grieved, then he accepted. Eventually, he stopped making friends altogether. It was easier that way. Imagine knowing you have forever. At first it's intoxicating. Time is no longer a constraint but an endless horizon, stretching far beyond the reach of ordinary men. You want to learn everything, do everything, be everything. The world feels vast, brimming with wonders waiting to be unraveled. But after a few centuries, something changes. You run out of things that surprise you. At first, you chase novelty, new lands, new faces, new ideas. You watch empires rise and fall, kings crowned and dethroned, revolutions spark and burn out. But soon, patterns emerge and the excitement fades. The same stories unfold, just with different costumes and weapons. Wars are always about power, disguised in noble causes. Love, no matter how deep, remains fragile, slipping through fingers like sand. Greed, no matter the age, never dies. Elias had read every book before its ink had dried, spoken every language until words lost their meaning, and walked every continent so many times that no path felt unfamiliar. He had mastered art, sculpting marble into perfection, painting scenes so lifelike they seemed to breathe. He had composed symphonies that once stirred souls, only to grow indifferent to their melodies. Medicine, engineering, philosophy, he had conquered them all. And yet none of it mattered anymore. Nothing was new, nothing lasted, no discovery, no creation, no pursuit could hold his interest for long. The world kept moving, but he remained, trapped in an existence that had long since lost its meaning. He had everything, and yet he was bored. An existence without an end was an existence without urgency, and urgency, he realized too late, was what made life beautiful. By the 1900s, Elias withdrew from the world almost entirely. He lived in the shadows, wandering through abandoned ruins and empty streets at night, a phantom of a time long past. He haunted old libraries, collecting books that no one else read. He scribbled notes in the margins, debating with authors who had long since turned to dust. He visited graves, leaving flowers for strangers who had left the world behind without anyone to remember them. And he began speaking to the wind, whispering conversations to the void, wondering if something was listening. One night, beneath a full moon in Rome, Elias stood before an ancient fountain, whispering the same wish he had whispered for centuries. "Let me go." A stranger approached, a man with silver eyes, dressed in a suit decades out of style. "You don't belong here," the man said. Elias tensed. "Who are you?" The man smiled. "A guide. And I've come to tell you, it's almost time." Elias felt something shift in the air. The stars above him blurred, the ground beneath him swayed. He had spent centuries untouched by time, but now, for the first time, he felt its grip. A single word left his lips. "How?" The man only smiled and walked away, leaving behind a small gold coin. ancient, worn, engraved with a symbol Elias had seen only once before, on Cecilia's locket. Her name was Lillian, but she had once been Cecilia, and before that she had been someone else. Like Elias, she had lived many lives, but unlike him, she had never been alone. She belonged to an ancient order, the Keepers of Time, souls who, after many lifetimes, remembered who they once were. They were not immortal, not exactly, but they returned, again and again, bound by fate, by love, by unfinished stories, and she had been searching for him. "You were never meant to be like this," she whispered, taking his hand. "No one should carry time alone." He had spent centuries trying to die. Now, for the first time, he wanted to live again. Lillian told him the truth. There was a way to end his immortality, but it was irreversible. Once gone, time would reclaim him, aging him in an instant. "Will it hurt?" he asked. She smiled, sadness laced in her expression. "Only for a moment." For the first time in centuries, Elias was afraid, not of death, but of losing what he had learned to endure. Yet, as he looked into Lillian's eyes, he realized something. He wasn't afraid of dying. He was afraid of living forever without her. So, he made his choice. They found him the next morning, an old man slumped in a cafe chair, a peaceful smile on his lips. No one knew his name. No one knew his story, but Lillian did. She sat across from him, holding his cold hand, tears slipping down her cheeks. "You were never forgotten," she whispered. And as the world moved on, Elias Mercer became what he had always longed to be, a memory. So, is immortality a blessing or a curse? Perhaps, like all great questions, the answer lies in the way we choose to live. Not in the years we have, but in the moments that make them matter.